What up? What up? So, we did not plan this. We did not plan this, by the way. I just decided to wear black, and I showed up. This nigga wearing black too. Some twin shit. Yeah, let's get into it. So, question: have you ever asked yourself, "Am I crazy?" You ever thought that maybe you might be crazy? How do you feel about the word crazy? Yeah. Asking you this question because this conversation is about mental health and how to balance it out in a chaotic world, right? So I'm gonna start telling you about a little story story about a situation I went through real fast with balancing mental health. There was a time where I considered myself possibly crazy. Couldn't tell for sure. I heard a voice inside my head. You know, some people might call that intuition. Some people might call that God. Some people call that crazy. Some people call that schizo. I don't know what you call it. Don't care. I just know that I heard it more than once. I heard it twice in my life. Several different occasions. Once as a kid, another time was an adult. The time I'm telling you about right now was a time when I was 20. I want to say I was about 24 years old. And I had this one apartment, little small apartment, one bedroom apartment. And I was sitting by myself. At this time, I was living in Illinois. It was right before we got our little record deal. Before we started to take the rap shit very serious. I think I was working at a hotel at the time, fucking just like, you know, making beds and shit like that. Nothing too crazy. But yeah, I was sitting in the room by myself. Broad day. It was daytime, and I was sitting in the bedroom, sitting on my bed, up against the wall, and there was a TV on the left side, but it was not on, and there was a wall on the right side, and I'm sitting up against the wall like this, looking straight, and I'm quietly, I guess I was just sitting in silence, you know, and listening to silence, staying, you know, trying to get calm. I guess you would say open eye meditation in a way, and I heard Jonathan in my right ear, clear as day, man. It scared the shit out of me. It was so loud, it made me jump. And the thing that made me feel crazy was I actually answered it and went, "What?" And as soon as I did that, I said to myself, "Dang, that kind of feels crazy." That I actually answered it, you know.
Yeah.
And the voice sounded like a male voice, almost like my dad's voice, almost like his, but it was almost even deeper, and even stronger. But I could feel almost like the air from the voice in my ear. That's what sounds crazy. It sounds crazy even saying it now. But I tell you to tell what I'm saying was from that situation, I questioned it if I was crazy or not. But I didn't come to that conclusion that I was crazy. In fact, I embraced it, whatever it was, and did not label it, is what I'm trying to say. I didn't label it, and I embraced whatever that was. I don't know why I heard it. I don't know where it came from, but I embraced it, and I took it as something that's a part of me. I guess I can hear voices, fuck it, whatever. That's how I took it at the time, you know? But what I did not do was label myself crazy. I think that was detrimental. I would have been detrimental if I had done that, and I didn't label myself crazy. I'm saying that because if you're a person who might go through that, hold off on labeling yourself, is what I'm trying to say. Don't be so quick to call yourself crazy, and don't be so quick to call other people crazy. Because believe it or not, I feel like a lot of people deal with that more than you know.
Don't be so quick to call yourself anything.
Exactly. Don't label it all, is what I'm saying.
What it is.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I most definitely had some experiences like that. First time I ever did when I was a little kid. I was in that apartment in LA, in Venice. I was a little kid and I was sitting in my room and all of a sudden I just heard this voice that sounded somehow familiar. But I know I didn't know. I've never heard it before, but it felt and sounded familiar. And it said my name. And to this day, I'm not even gonna fuck with it because it's like low-key triggering a little bit, kind of stressful to think about. But I definitely just heard my name, you know, right in my ear. And that's what tripped me out because I could feel the vibration of the voice directly in my ear. I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what the fuck? And I was just like, because it was some shit I ain't never experienced before, you know? And it was only scary because, like, I didn't know where it was coming from because I literally could hear the vibration of a person talking to me right in my right ear.
Right.
And it kept saying my name. It wasn't like menacing, it wasn't scary. It was only scary because I didn't understand it. But the vibe of it wasn't like something I should be scared of, but it was definitely clear, loud, and right in my ear saying my name, like, you know, Jared, like that. And I'm just like, what the fuck?
Right.
And I told my parents about it, you know, back then, it was, you know, it was religious, and told me to pray on it, you know. rebuke that shit. But for real, now knowing what I know now, it's not so much type of shit I would trip off of. But that was the first time. Another time, I was my ex-girlfriend. I'm now my ex-girlfriend's spot, and I was trying to lose some weight, and I was like working out, running the stairs and shit, doing my little cardio, and I'm going up and down and shit. And as I'm going up and down, I hear in my ear, my name is Jermaine, little brother. And it sounded like it was a voice, once again, I had never heard before. Now, this wasn't the same as like in my actual physical ear. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't a vibration of a voice. It was just an inner voice. And it was loud.
So it was more in your head?
It was in my head. It's in my head. But it was so clear. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I had to hear a voice in your head, the actual voice that you've never heard before. But all I can know is I got a vibe from this voice. Mm-hmm. And this voice came off like, almost like dignified. Like, it wanted me to know who it was, or who he was, I should say. Mm-hmm. And he introduced himself. I was just running up the stairs, and all I heard was, my name is Jermaine, little brother. And it didn't even say little brother. It was like talking to a black dude, like little brother. Like that. And I was just like, what the fuck? Who the fuck is Jermaine? You know? And I was just like, all right, Jermaine, whoever that was, you know? And I just kept going, working out, you know? But I'll never forget. That's why I've never forgotten it, because it was some new shit I'd never experienced. And I was just like, all right, but the point is, I did not label myself. I didn't start thinking. I didn't overthink it and thought, I should go figure out what that is and start looking for a diagnosis and shit. Nigga, there's all type of supernatural shit that happens around you any fucking way. Some people call it spiritual. Some people call it supernatural. Some people call it scientific. It's really all the same shit, man. You know, and a lot of times because we don't understand it, we label it as mentally ill. It's not necessarily mental illness. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying it ain't. But it's not necessarily mental illness. There's a lot of shit that goes on around us that we don't understand. Doesn't mean you need to jump to the fucking extreme and label it. Just it happened. Just say that, you know.
Right.
But for sure, if you got some mental illness going on and you think you do, if you really just can't shake that motherfucker off and get right and get happy and get natural and get balanced, maybe you should explore that. Right. Maybe you should explore going to go seek therapy or maybe even medication. I'm not gonna fucking tell you what you should do with that, but do your thing. Figure it out.
But be open about it, and don't be so quick to judge anybody or judge yourself about it, you know? Because how else are you gonna deal with it if you're judging yourself, you know? And being nervous, being scared to talk about it. You know?
Right.
So
there's no reason to be scared about it, first of all.
Right. Don't fear it.
Fear won't do shit for you.
Right.
But make it worse.
There's a lot of things that can bring it on, you know, that can, like I said, the main purpose of this is about how to balance these so-called mental, if it is a mental health issue, there's ways to balance this stuff out.
Speaking of which, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just want to say shout out to my little brother Joe, little Joseph Lindsay out there. Love you, little bro. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay clear. That's all.
Sure. But like I was saying, like, you know, there's ways to balance it out. If you are, even if you are truly dealing with a mental health issue, there's ways to balance that out. But what I want to get into is, I always look back on what made that happen. What made me start hearing that voice, you know? And looking back on it, I go, honestly, I think some of it had to do with stress that I was under. The 2 times that I've heard that voice, every time it was someone calling my name, I was under some kind of stress.
Not me.
Yeah, I was under some type of stress. And I'm thinking, what I'm trying to say is if you're a person who's living a stressful life, whether it be work or family stress or money or whatever it is that's causing you stress, be careful with that, because that could be the thing that triggers that, you know. And what we're trying to do is keep it at a minimum, keep it balanced, you know. Yeah, if you had to take medication, fine, but I wouldn't recommend it, you know, for so many different reasons that we won't get into here. But if you think that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. It's all personal. We all have to make our decisions of what we think we got to do. But I'm saying there's other healthier ways, and a lot of it is just staying active. You know, stay active. If you think you're the person that triggers, which I think a lot of times, not necessarily for me, but I've seen it with other people, that triggers these type of mental issues, fucking stay away from drugs, stay away from alcohol, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Because we had a homie one time who was undiagnosed schizo at the time, but he knew himself, and I was smart, that was good of him. He knew that I probably shouldn't smoke weed. I probably shouldn't drink because it makes me start thinking this way. It makes me start having these voices and shit. He wasn't even necessarily diagnosed at the time, but he knew enough that when I do this, it makes this come out. Right. You know? Right. And that's smart. So I'm saying, find a way to balance these things out. Learn yourself and find a way to keep that cool, you know? Because that's what I know about myself. When I start to get too, like, I'm talking about heavy stress. I ain't talking about little stress. Heavy stress to the point where I feel like I'm going to break. Yeah, that's when that shit starts to happen.
It's only happened twice in my life, but I know that. And that's what you got to do. You got to learn yourself, know yourself, and that's how you find ways to balance that shit out, man.
That's why knowledge of self is so important.
Exactly.
Because you can always circle back to who you are and knowing who you are. So yeah, once you know who you are, you know how to deal with yourself. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Really.
Let's stabilize it a little bit more. Fuck you, camera. Stay where I said to stay. Okay. So yeah, for real, man, anybody could have a fucking traumatic event in their life and just fucking flip out. That's my opinion. You know, like nobody's exempt from life happening to them. I never judge anybody from any type of, I know that mental health issues and stuff come with a stigma, and I understand why as well, but reality is we're all people, man. We're all human. It can happen to anyone. So let's not look, I'd rather not look at anyone like at someone who's going through something like that as weak. Because a lot of men, especially as black men in the hood that's raised in the streets, raised in the hood, like we have a stigma about being vulnerable and being weak, you know what I mean? Or some shit that's just not normal that nobody else understands. We look at that as like, oh, that nigga's ostracized. Fuck away from this weird ass nigga. I don't know what it means, but I don't want it around me, you know, and that's how we look at it. But the reality is we're here. I believe we're here to help heal and guide and direct each other. So if somebody you know is going through some shit, that maybe what they're telling you is some way out shit. I understand that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they don't need help or direction or guidance or just to be heard. It doesn't take a lot. Like I said, anybody could go through some shit. You don't know. So first of all, don't judge. Just hear them out. You don't have to agree. Just hear them out. That one experience right there, just hearing them out, could have solved everything they needed, and then it could have saved them from going off the deep end.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's my opinion on that. And then, plus from personal experience, I've been through so much shit. I've been out here and I've seen like how these things happen. I see what could have been avoided. I see how people could have just made a small thing, and then you avoided that, making it into a big thing.
Yeah.
I've seen people who could have just fucking said, you know what, I got an issue, and then go address it. And it didn't have to be a major thing. They lived a natural, healthy, balanced life, you know, successfully.
Yeah, a lot of times they just need an outlet. People just need an outlet, you know.
Yeah.
That's a good way to kind of help, you know, a way to express yourself.
Yeah.
That's because you know when I hear about mental breakdowns, I remember there was a time where I think our father went through a mental breakdown. I didn't know it at the time, but he told me that's what he's always called it. You know?
Right.
He called it a mental breakdown, and I thought to myself like, what the fuck is a mental breakdown?
Yeah.
And to this day, my only way to describe it is, it's still hard to describe, to be honest with you. To put it into words, what the fuck is a mental breakdown? I'll tell you what he said he went through. He just basically went through not wanting to talk, obviously really depressed. I think he wasn't even a whole lot of thoughts was even running through his mind. Mm-hmm. You know? And I know what the cause of that was. Obviously, that came from loneliness. It was at a time where our mother was just, going through her diagnosis with MS. And I think at the time...
Shortly after the divorce.
Yeah, it was shortly after the divorce, and that's when they had to... Shortly after he put her when they put her into the nursing home.
Yeah.
So he was without his partner, you know? So he was
He was dealing with a lot. And he had two rambunctious ass, wild ass little twins to raise.
Right.
So I understand now as an adult, like my dad, how he possibly could have gone through that. Because as a man, I've had my challenges as well. And as a father too, where you just thought, I think I'm gonna check out. I wanna check out, but you can't, you know?
That reminds me of a story that my dad told me about our grandfather one time. He did a self-check-in. He checked himself.
I always remember that story, and I admired it because I was like, this nigga was like something wrong,
right?
You know, and knew it.
Imagine putting yourself in a mental hospital. He checked himself in because he knew he needed that.
That's really dope
break.
though when you think about it. Like you gotta be really in tune with yourself to know, like I need some space away from life,
right?
You know,
and not afraid to be called crazy, you know. Mm-hmm. Because that could be a possibility.
It's so hard. A lot of people go through all type of shit, but that's what keeps them from admitting it, because it's like that one fear of everybody looking at you like you're crazy.
Fear of judgment.
But it's like, the judgment, you know? It's like, But once like niggas like us grew up around so much wild shit, you face crazy on the daily, really, especially in the hood. Drug addicts.
I work in a mental health.
And we work,
hospital
but we
right
grew
now.
up seeing it. I mean, a lot of people don't even realize it till later in life. But you got mental illness in the family somewhere. You got family members. You got all types of shit going on.
Yeah.
But we just thought they was eccentric or artistic or a musician or just just different.
Oh, you know what? And this also brings up another great point.
Which is fine.
As far as like what we call mental health and what the causes are, right? I was just having a conversation with my cousin on the phone the other day. Cause soon I'm going to go to the whole little funeral type situation for our dad. And I was talking to my cousin about that. She asked me, hey, do you think mental health issues runs in our family?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't think it runs in our family when it comes to like, as far as DNA. I don't think it runs in our family in DNA wise. But what I do say is what runs in our family is trauma. Trauma runs in our family. Unresolved trauma.
You said it.
Unresolved trauma runs in our family. Mm-hmm. And that trauma is what's causing the mental health issues.
I believe the same.
It's causing the mental health issues, the unresolved trauma.
And
she agreed. She's like, because think about all the stuff that we've all individually been through in the family.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Even from our different generations, from grandfather to
generational
father,
shit, bro.
Great grandfather been through stuff, and no one was talking about it.
Right.
Everybody's sweeping it under the rug.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's causing the mental health. I don't think it's a DNA thing. I really personally don't believe it's
well,
a DNA.
technically, yes, because I believe that the DNA carries the energy.
Because it goes on long enough,
so,
eventually
yes
it does.
and no, but I know what you're saying.
This is what I'm trying to say. Let me say it a different way. I don't think there's a DNA gene. There's a gene that has a mental. I don't think there's a crazy gene. We'll say it like that.
Yeah,
there's not a crazy gene in your blood.
Yeah, I feel you.
But DNA can pass off different,
trauma
on the trauma. It can,
yeah.
it definitely can.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's going on.
Yeah.
Not just with our family, but a lot of different families.
Straight up.
But I think it needs to be explored more and it needs to be talked about even more.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not crazy.
I think it would help if the elders get involved more.
For sure.
Not involved as in like go and be active and shit, but let's just talk with these young mothers to get to the nitty gritty.
Right.
My personal opinion, it's too much religion involved, so they really can't get down to what's really going on with their little young asses because it's a generation gap as is.
Right.
But if you just talk like human beings and leave all your politics out and just talk to this motherfucker like a human being, you probably have a better understanding.
Yeah.
The young person can talk to the old person and learn something from him. And then the older person can talk to the young person, the young person can advance because of what he learned from him.
Right.
It's like, so just talk like people. Put aside what your beliefs are. Just talk like people to each other. We might get further along. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like as people, as a society, we think we're talking to each other, but really just presenting what we've been taught in our politics and our ego and shit. Mm-hmm. Instead of just talking to another human being like another human being.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's what gets in the way a lot of times. Yeah. Fuck wrong with this motherfucker?
Probably another person dealing with mental health issues.
Young nigga.
And we deal with a lot of that here in Los Angeles. If you don't already know that, if you're from LA, you've been to LA,
Yeah.
And this is exactly why we're discussing this because it's so prevalent. Super prevalent. It's not an easy thing to talk about. It's also even more difficult. That's a very difficult thing to talk about for so many reasons. It's hard to put your finger on it, honestly. It really is. Because I also believe some people just have some spiritual gifts. That can be labeled as crazy.
We are in LA now. There's a lot of motherfucking special people out here.
Yeah.
I done seen a lot of shit. A lot of people with a lot of gifts. So
but you see them reacting to it and it gets labeled as crazy.
And that's the trip because you'll see a lot of people with these like crazy gifts, but then you'll see like them act like some goddamn asses sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's confusing. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this motherfucker? I like people like Kanye West.
Yeah.
He's a super talented and gifted person, but we forget because they're also not just gifted in the arts. They got spiritual gifts probably too.
Right.
And because we live in a society where, put it this way, we don't praise originality, especially in the thought era.
Not today's age.
When that happens, we get labeled crazy.
Right.
Put it that way. Yeah.
And there's also another thing that kind of brings about this stuff is fear. I think fear, because we live in a world that pushes fear so many different ways. So no wonder mental health is an issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think fear causes mental health issues.
Yeah. I feel like fear is another reason why people kind of get off track in life because they let fear set in.
Yeah. a fear of all type of shit. You know,
Exactly. So many things.
Yeah, you know, I was about to go deeper. I was like, that's too much right now. But you know, for real, I just think that if you think you got some shit going on mentally and you feel it off, it would be beneficial for you to look within a little bit. You can do that any kind of way you want to. You can go through therapy, you can do meditation, you could work out, you could start drawing, you could start journaling, you could start talking to someone, you know.
Yeah.
All these things help you heal, and that's the point of the conversation essentially, is to, like, yes, mental illnesses do exist. And yes, it's a reality in our life every day, especially out here in LA. But does it mean that your life has to stop? No. Does it mean that you can't be successful? No. Does it not mean that you can't be you and still be loved?
In fact,
no, it doesn't mean that.
It could be the very thing that guides you to success, depending on how you do it.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And it starts with acceptance.
It does.
Accept whoever you are around that has it or seems to be going through it, and accept yourself. If you are labeled with something, like, you know, remember, it's just a word. That's what I believe. I'm gonna keep it G with y'all. It's just a word. It isn't just a word. It is a word, but it ain't just a word. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have to mean it's your end all be all. It's a word to explain something about who you are. You could turn that into whatever you want to. Turn it into something bad and live by that, or you can turn it into something good. It's your choice.
Don't feed the fear.
That part. All right, man. I've said everything I need to say today.
If you guys relate to any of this, please leave it in the comments. Let us know how you feel about this. If you disagree, agree, let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Let's keep a conversation and a discussion going with this topic, all right?
For sure.
Make sure to like it. Make sure to subscribe for sure.
Yeah. I appreciate anybody who showed up today and to even think about what we was talking about. If we popped up on your radar, if we popped up in your mind, I appreciate you checking in. I fuck with y'all. I love myself. I hope you love yourself. But I love you. I'm able to love you because I love myself. So check it out. The best thing I would say to do today, the most important thing you could do today for you, is to love yourself for yourself. Fuck with y'all.